Hey guys, Square Camel Adventure Products. This is my 2016 Honda Africa Twin. There are lots of awesome things about this bike. One of the things that I really don't like is the factory low fender. Looks awesome, fits the bike really well. I really like the look of it. The problem is that it's not nearly high enough off the tire, and the amount of width in here isn't enough for a knobby tire if it's muddy. But right after I got this bike, I tried to race at the 24 Hours of Starvation Ridge in southern Washington, which is typically a very, very muddy event, and was on an adventure bike team. There were 5 of us. The course is 17 miles. You do a lap, you come in, you hand a transponder off to one of your teammates, they go out and do a lap, come back, hand off the transponder to the next guy, next guy, next guy. You do that for 24 hours. Whoever has the most laps at the end of it wins the class. So I went out, the course, like I said, is 17 miles. I made it 2. 2 miles until the front tire just got the right consistency of mud that it all balled up. And with the grass and everything else, the front tire would not clean, locked the front tire up solid. Ended up going back to the pits on the trailer behind a side-by-side, which is big thumbs down, no good at all. So started looking at options for doing a high fender kit for the bike. A couple of very large challenges with this is that up underneath the triple clamp, there's no threaded holes to mount a bracket to mount a fender, which is tough. Lots of bikes like the F800, there's high fender kits for those. There's already a couple of holes under there that are drilled, so you can make an adapter plate and then bolt a readily available fender to it. The KTM 1190, which I had previous to this, same thing. Took the low fender off, put high fender on. You can get a little stamp steel bracket or laser cut bracket for about 60 bucks with a couple of spacers, and it just bolts to existing holes. Nice and straightforward, easy, especially on the 1190. You don't even have to do anything different with brake lines. The factory lines will work. The big problem with a low fender on a bike that goes in the mud is that this balls up, doesn't fit through the front fender, locks at the front tire solid. If you are going down a muddy road and that happens, if it happens at speed, you can snap the front fender completely off. And then we have the factory brake line. This isn't a factory brake line, this is a braided stainless line. But the factory line goes from the right side to the left side, just over top of the tire. So if you have enough mud balled up on the tire that's going to break the fender, that same mud is going to hook your front brake line right into the tire, and one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to rip the brake line off, which doesn't happen as often as you think, but more likely that'll stop the front tire dead, just like the fender, if it doesn't break. So the one and only threaded hole under here is this guy, and it's there's a bracket that comes down to hold the brake lines out of the way of the low fender, and that is it. There's nothing else on here. So we had to get super creative to make the fender bracket. So I decided the easiest way to do the high fender kit was to mount an existing fender. Not interested in making molds for a new fender. So many dirt bikes floating around, so many different companies from the original, say, KTM, Honda, Yamaha. Then there's UFO Plastic and Meyer and HRBs and things like that. So we're just using an existing KTM fender. A lot of people are going to ask why I didn't use the Honda fender for the dirt bikes. They come in red. The red doesn't match the red on the Africa Twin anyway. It's going to look a little bit off and goofy. So I decided that as long as we could get them in black and white, that would probably be good for 95% of our customers. So there's a standard bolt pattern on here. So we needed to make a bracket that this was going to mount to. And originally, we just made an aluminum plate. It's 1/4 inch broken here, but we need to space it down because there's a lip on the bottom of the triple clamp. So this is actually 2 pieces. Trying to make it as economical as possible. So this is the spacer piece here, and then it bolts on with 2 countersunk bolts. There's a groove on the front of the fender here, and that's what this hole is for. So the deal is, let it bolt on there like that. So we've got a countersunk bolt, countersunk hole, and then we've got basically a handlebar handguard end. So although we don't have any threaded holes on the triple clamp, there's the steering stem. So this is the same This OD is the same as the ID on the steering stem. So this goes up, crank this down, it expands, holds the bracket in place. So that was the plan, was to do this. The problem is brake lines on this bike. The factory rubber lines, the way they're routed, there's absolutely no way to make them work with the high fender. We can't have the hose crossing over the tire with a high fender, super huge safety concern. The rubber hoses, we can't just simply reroute them. The hoses, the lengths don't work. The routing doesn't work. Originally, they come underneath the triple and then they go down. If we have a fender bolted to the underside of the triple clamp, we can't have the hose crossing under there. It just doesn't work. So we've got a hard line mount off of the ABS that's right here, and it's too close to the triple clamp. The steering lock on this bike is so huge. I've never seen a bike that has such a tight turning radius that when this moves all the way back, when you make a full right-hand turn, we can't have a 90-degree hose coming off that and down the side and then down to caliper. The triple clamp would just snap it off. And then we can't have it just come straight from here down here because it will flex too much. There's just way too much movement for the length of the hose. So we had to go in front of the headlight bracket here, down the side, cross it over, and it's going to mount there. And then this is one of the hoses that goes down to the caliper. So we needed to do a brake manifold that went across here and then bolted on to this bracket that the fender bolts onto. So after I started pricing it all out, doing this and making a custom manifold that went across here, I should point out that originally this hole was going to hold that T. So the brake hose was going to come off of the hard line, go to here, each one of these off to a caliper. But when we go back to the bike, we have this metal bit right here. So if the T is going straight up every time you turn, you end up smacking that off. So that's not an option. You got very, very limited options for brake hoses. So I decided that basically a brake manifold that went end to end here was threaded on each end. So the hose that would come around, go here with a double banjo and stack in with the line that goes to the caliper. This is single banjo that goes down to the braided line on the other side. So price this out, 1, 2 pieces, manifold, 3 pieces, and then either bolting it on or getting it TIG welded on. By the time did all the math on this, drilling, tapping these holes, and countersinking holes, just decided that it wasn't worth doing. So this is super crude. Call this an MVP, a minimum viable prototype. So this is that, but with a manifold on top. But when I price out this, and a manifold, bolted together, welded together, it just didn't make any sense. So instead of doing a fabricated piece like that, that's multiples, we drew up one billet CNC piece. And the price is a little bit more than doing it this way. The amount of work to get this out is way higher. The finished product is nowhere near as cool as this. This is awesome. This is, well, garbage, right? MVP, minimum viable prototype. So this comes to us from the machine shop, all the holes drilled and tapped, all the countersinking done, all one piece, billet aluminum anodized. How can you go wrong? So that's where we're at. So we take the, try to shoot your own video. We'll do that. So we have the expanding bolt, or expanding insert. I don't think it's going to take very long before I dropped this camera. So I'm trying to do this and I'm like balancing on the knobby tire, right? And I'm gonna end up dropping this camera and you're gonna get a front row view. So we've got some new sealing washers. This is the double banjo bolt that was originally on the left-hand side of the bike. That's going to move over to the right-hand side right now. So put a sealing washer on. Put another sealing washer on. And then we can tighten this. So this hose here loops through, there's the metal bracket here and it's got a big loop on it. This goes through it. So when the bars turn this way, it doesn't get wiped out by that. When the bars turn this way, there's enough slack in the hose that everything clears and is all good. This fender is off of KTM Freeride and it's got a little bit different bolt pattern. So actually only 2 of the 4 bolts are going to bolt in here right now. And we're going to add the other 2 holes. I really do like this fender. It's nice and small, works well in the application. So we'll add the other 2 holes to the setup before we ship them out. So we're including these new hose guides. Keeps the hose out of the tire when the suspension compresses, which is obviously a big deal. And then we're including the lower mounting brackets here for the fork guard to attach to. Brake hoses, and then there's an adapter up here. It's going to be hard to see. Anyway, a hardline adapter for the hose, and just catch it right here. The 640 rally bikes have a different one. Really? Brake line mounting clamp. So we got a countersunk bolt. That's not drilled. So I made a slight change to the bracket. We've actually added this tab. This one is TIGged on. The production ones are actually machined in. And what it is on the back of the triple clamp here, this is a threaded hole that was originally holding hose clamp. So the assembly is going to drop in the same way as it did before, and we just have an extra layer of security with an M6 bolt that's going to go into this threaded hole. And in the event that this loosened off, there's no way that this is going to come down.